First of all, I do apologize from last week of not doing a review for the simulated match that is happening in the virtual world of MLS. Last week, I was a little bit busy and I was keeping a close eye in terms of what's going to happen between the MLSPA and the owners and whether or not if they can ratify the CBA so that we are not going to actually go into a lockout. And even if a lockout does happen, I would still continue to do these kind of review of these simulated matches. And I know these videos have suffered some low viewership, and some people probably would say, you need to stop doing this because not a lot of people actually watch these videos and it's just suffer from low viewership. Well, the reason why I'm probably not going to stop doing these kind of video is because this is my substitute for doing previews and reviews video. And if you guys don't know, previews and review videos are probably my most favorite video to record on this channel besides the Sports Hop series, which that series has been on hiatus for 3 months and it could be continue to be on hiatus for a couple months as long as these non-league games or any games that I can ground hop is not going to return. So this is really the only thing I can hang on to in terms of doing some of my favorite video to record. So therefore, that's why I am not going to stop even if there is some lower viewership and not a lot of people are watching these videos. But that being said, I'm actually going to get into today's video, and we have 5 games that is going on today because this is supposed to be the international break, which means that usually we're not going to have a lot of games that is taking place in MLS. And this also will be the first time since I started doing these review for these simulated matches where I don't have to switch boards, which means that I can actually just kind of talk about what is on the board, and I of course would be done with, and I can of course upload this video very quickly, and that this probably will be the shortest video in terms of me doing these review for simulated matches. But that being said, let's take a look at the first game between the Red Bulls and the Union. And the Union was able to win 4-1 in this game as Brandon Aronson scored a hat-trick in this game, and he's not the only player to score a hat-trick in this week's simulated match. He started his hat-trick show in the 12th minute by giving the Union a 1-0 lead. Then he scored again in the 25th minute to give the Union a 2-0 lead. Kaku did try to make things interesting for the Red Bulls by getting one back, but Shabilko would make it 3-1 just 9 minutes after the Red Bulls thought that they got back into this game. And then Brandon Aronson basically complete his hat trick to make it 4-1 in favor of the Union as Aronson continued to show why he's not only one of the rising star player in the league, but he could definitely become one of the best player in the league. And, it's kind of interesting the fact that he, of course, scored a hat-trick in this because he usually is a guy that is more of a playmaker rather than to be a lethal goal scorer. But yeah, with this win, the Union, of course, are able to get a crucial 3 points, and they are able to keep pace with Orlando, which I will later mention that Orlando City also won this week in a massive showdown between one of the hottest team in the league and a team that desperately need a win. Although for the Red Bulls, yeah, the frustration continued this year. I mean, as I said before with the Eastern Conference, how things are kind of being very jumbled up between 3rd through 12th. Well, you're going to see later on, things are starting to spread out a little bit, and it's now kind of break into 2 groups where it seemed like there's a battle between 1st through 5th, and then there's a battle between 6th through 12th, and that both of those groups are kind of jumbled up to each other. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the Revs and DC United, and I would call this the inconsistent derby because both of these teams have been very inconsistent, and as a result of their inconsistency, they have been finding themselves near the bottom of the Eastern. Well, they're not really at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, but they're just below the red line right now. And in this inconsistent derby, it was the Revolution was able to get the victory in this. Diego Fagundes got the opening goal to make it 1-0 in favor of New England. Then Julian Gresso ties it up for DC United at 1 apiece in the 50th minute before Gustavo Bo would give the Revs the lead back 6 minutes later. Then he would score 16 minutes later to make it 3-1 in favor of New England, as New England got a crucial 3 points in this in this game, and they're actually now tied with NYCFC right now in terms of the last spot of the playoffs. But as I said, both of these teams are very inconsistent, and as much as I know New England fans might have a little bit hope the fact that their team might be able to find their way back above the red line, you don't know what's going to happen in the next game. Like, if they lose their next game, then they're probably going to get stuck below the red line again. And the same can go with DC United, where, even if they win the next game, depending on what's going on with the team above them, they might not find themselves above the red line. And also, if they, of course, are continue to have this inconsistent form, as I mentioned with New England before, they'll probably be stuck below the red line too. So yeah, both of these teams, they need to start figuring out their form if they want to find themselves above the red line. Otherwise, they're going to be stuck in the same position that they've been in right now. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match is RSL and FC Dallas. So RSL was able to get a crucial 3-0 win in this, and all of a sudden they started to once again build up that gap in second place after last week they were able to get the victory, and Seattle wasn't able to get the win last week. And in this game, we also saw another player that got a hat trick, and this time it was from Demar Krylak, who scored his first of what would be a hat trick in the 22nd minute to give RSL 1-0 lead. Then he scored in the 55th minute to give RSL a 2-0 lead before he completes his hat trick in the 69th minute to give RSL the 3-0 lead, and that would be the final score of this game, as RSL, as I said, they extended their gap between them and Seattle, partially because Seattle didn't play this week, but at the same time they also were able to extend the gap after last week when RSL was able to beat Seattle in that matchup and reclaim second place in the Western Conference. And as for Dallas, they're having the same issue that New England and DC is having. Very inconsistent, and that they're kind of finding a similar spot of what they've been for the past couple of years, which is right kind of above that red line, and that they're a team that you know that they could definitely be a team that maybe will make the playoffs, but most likely they might not be a team that could be like challenged right near the top of the table if they continue this inconsistent form. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the hottest team in the league against a team that desperately needs some points. Now, that being said, SKC last week, they did suffer their first loss in a while, and that winning streak that they had, which I think was the longest winning streak that they had of any team, even longer than the current team that is at the top of the Western Conference, that is Minnesota United. But unfortunately, last week it came to an end in the hands of FC Dallas. And this week, unfortunately, they weren't able to bounce back again. And this was always going to be tough to try to bounce back after they suffered that first loss in a while, because they were facing an Orlando City team that desperately needs a win so that they can keep up with Philly, who already won earlier, as I mentioned, against the Red Bulls, and they were able to do that. But first, it was Felipe Gutierrez that got the opening goal in this game, only for Nani to tie it right on the stroke of halftime. Then Junior Urso would give Orlando City their first lead of the game before Nani basically sealed the door shut for SKC of any potential comeback, as SKC was really pushing for an equalizer in this game, but unfortunately they weren't able to do, and that they kind of got caught on the counter attack, which Nani was able to basically pass through every single SKC defender and able to put away that third goal to give Orlando City a massive 3 points to keep pace with Philly in terms of that top spot, and able to gain a little bit ground on Atlanta, who, by the way, Atlanta last week actually took the top spot of the Eastern Conference. And, throughout these kind of review, I haven't really mentioned the fact that some of these teams actually have a game in hand. And the reason why I haven't mentioned it is because when you look at the standing wise, and I'm looking, these standings that I put is based on what the standings that MLS Soccer.com is actually putting, and they don't actually show you how many games each team has played. So some of these teams, even though they're near the top of the table, they might actually play more games than the team that is below them. And I have a feeling Atlanta probably is one of those teams that have played fewer games than what Orlando City and Philly has, and that they have a chance to take that lead if they, of course, are able to win that game in hand that they have over them. But last but not least in this review, and again, I know this is a very fast review because we only had to do 5 games this week, is Vancouver and Montreal. And you notice I'm wearing a Whitecaps jersey, and I would have worn this jersey last week because the Whitecaps did something that they had not done for a very long time, which is get a win. They finally ended that losing streak last week, and now they're able to win back-to-back games for the first time this season, as they were able to win 2-1 against Montreal in the all-Canadian affair. And the goal scoring pretty much happened in the beginning of this game. In fact, all of the goal scoring actually happened in a spell of 9 minutes in the beginning of this game. We got Lucas Cavallini got the opening goal for Vancouver in the 19th minute, only for Samuel Piette to score an unlikely goal to tie the game up for 1 apiece for the Impact. But then Cavallini would grab the lead back in the 28th minute, and that would be the final score of this game, as you know, both teams had chances to potentially score another goal in this, but the Whitecaps were able to hang on to this 2-1 victory, and now they, of course, got back-to-back wins, which is good for them, but at the same time, unfortunately, they have not yet find themselves at the foot of the Western Conference. But at least one thing I will say about the Whitecaps is that they finally reached the mark that they desperately wanted to do and become the last team to actually do this, which is reach the double-digit mark in terms of points total. Up until this point, they were the last team to not reach more than 10 points this season. They finally did it by winning against the Impact, and now are able to get 11 points in the standings. Although, that being said, they're still at the bottom of the Western Conference because they're so far behind everybody else in terms of the standings, and it would really take an incredible run for the Whitecaps as they can potentially get themselves into playoff position. But you never know. Maybe this winning streak could be a bit of a start, although at the same time it could also be just them beating up against teams that they might that is the only team that they might have a chance to get a win, and then reality is going to set in the next match when they are going to face a much tougher team, because Montreal is another team that is struggling right now, and they're near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Speaking of the Eastern Conference, let us now actually go into the standings of the table after God, I actually don't know which match week we're in. I think we're in 15 or 14 in terms of match week of these simulated matches. But in terms of the Eastern Conference standing, we have the Union and Orlando City tie at top of the Eastern Conference with 25 points. Atlanta is right behind them with 23 points, followed by Columbus Crew with 21 points. FC Cincinnati currently have 20 points, and then this is where things started to kind of break up a little bit, and it kind of get into the second group where things are kind of jumbled up. We have TFC currently having 16 points, followed by a tie of the last place for the playoff spot between NYCFC and New England at 15 points apiece. Then we got the Red Bulls currently in 9th place and tie with their Atlantic Cup rival DC United at 14 points. Then we got Montreal at 12 points and Chicago remaining at the bottom of the Eastern Conference table at 11 points. Looking at the Western Conference standings, Minnesota currently have 39 points, although I have a feeling they probably have a couple of games in hand of the team that is below them, who, the team below them, RSL, started to kind of catch them up a little bit and close that gap within 6 points of the top of the standings, and currently have 33 points. And they also are able to extend a little bit gap between themselves and Seattle, who currently have 28 points in 3rd place. Then you got the Rapids currently have 26 points, the Galaxy with 23 points, SKC currently with 22 points, FC Dallas with 21 points, and then below the red line, we got LAFC currently with 19 points, although I have a feeling they might still have a couple of games in hand so that they can get themselves back above the red line. Then we got the Portland Timbers with 14 points. There's a tie between the Dynamo and the Quakes at 13 points apiece in 10th place. And then at the bottom, Vancouver, who, as I mentioned, despite the fact that they were able to get back-to-back win and finally become the last team to get double-digit point this season, they're still stuck at the bottom of the the bottom of the Western Conference with 11 points. Although, that being said, there is the other good news, I would say, to Whitecaps fan, and I'm not quite sure if this is a good news for them if their fans are not thinking about winning the Wooden Spoon again. They're actually now on level with Chicago in terms of the Wooden Spoon award. So, yeah, a lot of people thought that Vancouver was probably going to be the one that received the Wooden Spoon of how bad their season has gone. But now, all of a sudden, that Wooden Spoon competition has started to heat up as we have all these teams that are kind of putting a little bit of a shit show in the last couple of games, and they're letting a Whitecaps team, who originally was the team that looked like was going to be cemented to win the Wooden Spoon, now started to kind of push their way out of that position. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these matches. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.